anywhere but there.
Foul. Jimmy White call for a foul. It wasn't in the D. The white wasn't in the D? Wow.
Well, we're seeing it. I can't tell. I can't tell.
Here's how we know this is a foul, and it's not because of the camera angles, as their perspective gives the appearance that the cue ball's further out of the D than I believe it actually is. So instead, if we look at how Hossein's placing the cue ball in the D, he's holding it like this, and as he releases the cue ball, you can clearly see a couple of frames where the cue ball goes to the left-hand side like that. And I think this is just enough for it to drop out of the D. I was planning to recreate this shot from just inside and just outside of the D to see if that made any difference, but unfortunately Hossein played this shot with quite a bit of left hand side, so that rules that out. You might also notice that Hossein seems to have a good look at the cue ball as he moves away from the table here and appears to be observing whether or not it's in the D. But at the same time, the referee is looking at exactly the same thing, and there's no way he'd call this unless he was 100% sure. What we do know is Hossein was placing the cue ball as close to the edge of the D as possible. Because of this, I believe this fractional movement of the cue ball would definitely have been enough to see it go on the other side of the line, so I'm 90% sure this was a foul. This made a big difference, as instead of a deciding frame, Jimmy went on to take the match. I've made this video to look at controversial decisions like this, where players aren't always aware of the rules, and it's important to give these types of videos snappy titles. So this is called Unusual Snooker Rules That Rarely Come Up, but when they do, can cause confusion. When it gets to just the black remaining, the first score of points ends the frame. Now this could be when somebody pots the black, or...
in off in the middle. Oh, incredible!
A player commits a foul, and in the Pool Hunter Classic a few years ago, Kyren needed to pot the black to tie the frame and force a respot. However, he missed it, but this didn't matter because his opponent went in off in the middle pocket on the very next shot. But then, Kyren seemed completely unaware of the rules and believed because the frame was now tied, he could just play the black over the pocket out of the D. But as I explained earlier, because points have been scored on the black ball, that means the frame is over and it ends as a tie. So it's a respotted black. But at least this time, nobody placed the cue ball outside of the D, as World Snooker expertly found with this archive footage after the Hossein Vafaei incident. But it is still a little bit surprising that Kyren didn't know this rule. In the end, it didn't matter though, as he won the game with this double and eventually the match. After a foul is committed, if a player can't see both extreme sides of at least one ball on, then they're awarded a free ball and can take any colour as that ball. Even though this happens enough for players to be fully aware of the rules, sometimes it can cause confusion because it can be difficult for a referee to work out if a player can see both sides of any one ball on. But the shot we're looking at is definitely a free ball between John Higgins and Wu Yize. And it's all because of what happened next, where Wu misses the pink into the middle pocket and the referee calls a foul.
Foul.
You're not allowed to snooker your opponent behind a free ball, so if I nominated black and did that, it would be a foul and my opponent would be awarded a free ball. However, if I was to play the same shot and snooker my opponent behind the pink rather than the black, even though the black's also in the way, because the pink's the first ball, that's not a foul. So, with this shot, even though Wu's attempted the pink in the middle pocket, it's still come back and covered the red, and that's why the referee calls a foul, which confuses John Higgins as he's not sure what's going on here until the referee reminds him it's a free ball. And then once he's done that, he asks if he's got to see both sides, and doesn't seem to be sure about this rule either. The thing that ended up confusing John is he could see some but not all of the red. But just like before, you have to be able to see both sides of the red, otherwise it's a free ball. Eventually, Jan Verhaas turned up to clarify everything, which resulted in John Higgins clearing up and winning the frame, and eventually taking the match by 6 frames to 5, meaning this did actually make quite a big difference in the end. Watch the red here. The referee decides the shot's already over before the red dropped in, so decides to replace it, but the players disagree with this decision and think the red should remain in the pocket. This is definitely confusing because the rules do say if a ball suddenly drops in a pocket after the shot is completed, like that, obviously without somebody hitting the table or jumping up and down on the floor, then the ball should be replaced. But it is allowed to teeter on the pocket momentarily and then drop. It's just nobody knows exactly how long momentarily means, and this rarely, if ever, comes up. And in the end, the referee agreed with the players that not enough time had passed and the red stayed in the pocket.
I'm now happy for the red to come off.
But this is where it gets a little bit more complicated, because in this match between Anthony Hamilton and Shaun Murphy, they were just about to call a re-rack when this happens. Whilst discussing noise being made at the other end of the arena because of seating being moved, the red dropped in the pocket. Now in this situation, both players wanted the red to stay in the pocket to avoid the re-rack, and Anthony Hamilton was even happy, as it was his shot, to give away a 4-point foul just to make sure the red stayed off the table and they avoided the re-rack. But should they have been allowed to do this? Normally this wouldn't be a foul because the red dropped in on its own, but as both players were so desperate to avoid the re-rack that Anthony didn't mind giving away 4 points, you could argue that when he touched the table, it was that knocked the red in. Obviously if he'd slammed his hand against it, that would have been a foul, but the touch probably he would have got away with in normal situations. This didn't end up working out too well for Anthony, as he lost the frame and eventually the match.
He's going to the jaws to try and take the cue ball across the cushion. Ooh.
Sometimes when you can't get out of a snooker, the miss rule can be incredibly frustrating. But what we're looking at is if you can see a ball on and a miss is called 3 times in a row after you fail to hit a ball on, after it's replaced, then you automatically forfeit the frame. And this is exactly what happened to Ricky Walden when he played John Higgins in the Championship League. He narrowly missed the red the first time, missed it by further the second time, got warned by the referee that he must hit the reds on his next attempt, so he tried to roll down the table and hit the red next to the pink that he could see full ball. Unfortunately, the white rolled off and he ended up losing the match. However, when the same thing happened to Ronnie O'Sullivan, he was confused by the situation, as he didn't think he could see enough of the ball. What Ronnie didn't realise is, unlike a free ball where you got to be able to see both extreme edges, with this one you've only got to be able to see it full, which means if you were to miss this shot on your 3rd attempt, you'd lose the frame.
Oh my goodness, he's got to hit this hard enough, otherwise it lost the frame.
However, even though Ronnie did risk it on his 3rd attempt and play off the cushions, he did manage to make contact with the reds. Before we look at the next thing, let's just quickly find Thomas, who's in Patel, Sweden, which is, if I can get it right, there. Now this is a push where a simultaneous contact between the tip, the cue ball and the object ball is made, and it usually results in the cue ball running through quite a lot. These two definitely aren't a push. And it's Ronnie again, who's dropped on top of the blue, needing that and the pink to win the frame. But when he goes to play it, this happens.
Staying on the hole if he hits it slow.
Foul. What? It's a push from it.
You got it up?
No, it was a push.
With this one, there's a small gap between the white and the blue, which means when Ronnie plays it this thin, the cue ball reacts normally like this. So it's definitely not a push. This next shot's a little bit different again, though.
No way in a million years. No way.
Now this is a lot more confusing because the cue ball and the red are incredibly close together, meaning you will get a simultaneous contact. However, the rules say it doesn't matter as long as you play the shot extremely thin. But once again, what does extremely thin mean? The referee's got to make a call on that, which will usually be done by determining how the cue ball moves away from the red. And usually similar to Mark's shot, if it moves away like that, like it hasn't been pushed, they won't call it as a foul. This was just one of those occasions where they did. Even though Oliver did win this frame, Mark ended up winning the match, so it didn't make too much difference. So this one's been a bit different then, but we're back to normal next week with the best shots from the Northern Ireland Open. But if you can't wait for that, have a look at these two recent recreation videos. And remember, don't just watch, play, and make the commitment to becoming a better player by subscribing to the channel and visit the website. See you later.